So, can you tell me a little bit about the Dark Night project?
Sure. So, I think the basic idea is that within Dharma circles, Dharma books, popular Dharma books, and within the scientific study of meditation, we've been very biased into really just reporting on the positive effects.
Yeah, mindfulness is praised right now.
Yeah, and it's not, I mean, nothing's like that.
Yeah.
You know, and so we want to, in order to be, I think, good scientists, we need to be, or even good Dharma teachers, to be just honest and accurate and balanced about what does this path entail, so that we can be like really prepared for it as meditators who are entering it. What am I getting myself into? Mm-hmm. And also, you know, as scientists and meditation teachers, we need to be prepared to support practitioners in whatever they're going to encounter. Yeah. I think in some ways we're almost cataloging some of the worst case scenarios. So in some ways the study itself is very biased because it's really like, it's not representative of like what's going to happen to anyone. It's like what's the sort of worst possible situations. Yeah. So right now we've interviewed about 40 teachers and have 30 practitioners that some of them are the teachers that we've interviewed about difficulties. Mm-hmm. So we have like cognitive, perceptual, and sensory sort of aberrations, emotional difficulties or challenges or just changes that are very maybe disturbing to people. Changes in sense of self was one of the categories, and then any kind of physiological manifestation. So those are like sort of the 4 categories that the different experiences seem to fall into. Mm-hmm. And actually, as we were going through, there was a 5th one, which was sort of impairment in social relationships. And so they're coping with a lot of this like high sensitivity to stimuli, very strong emotional reactions, sort of almost hyper-reactive emotions. A lot of times, traumatic memories can be sort of start to erupt through the body, and again aren't turned off just because the bell rang.
Sure. It's really important because I have a psychotherapy background and was also trained as a vipassana teacher. Once a month I would get a phone call or an email from somebody who's come off a retreat from whatever tradition. Yeah. And they were falling apart. And at first, when I started meeting them and learning about the physical stuff that was going on for them, or the splitting that was happening, or psychosis, I was trained in a kind of psychological paradigm that what was coming up for them was old memories of trauma or something from their childhood. Mm-hmm. And then what was becoming more and more peculiar was the more people I started working with, the more I realized that actually wasn't what was coming up. They were people who were really balanced, had done maybe a lot of psychotherapy even, hadn't had a lot of trauma, or if they had, it's been really worked through maturely. And they were having these kind of explosives sometimes, temperatures, or they would have like pain in very specific areas of their head that would be like throbbing and then turning into color, or they would have like pains inside their pelvis that would then kind of like shoot up into other areas, and they would see like good osteopaths or whatever who couldn't explain it. In our training as meditation teachers, we need to learn more, not just about recognizing trauma, but also how to work with these movements of sensation that are so overwhelming for people, and that traditionally they were ways of working with this. When I was in Asia, one of the things I noticed was when there were students who were having difficulty on retreat, they'd be put in the garden, they'd be put in the kitchen, and they would be told that that's the meditation practice you're working with now.
The practices have been extracted from this larger context and this larger whole that we think of. I mean, just Google meditation. What do you see? Someone saying you got to be cross-legged, your eyes are probably closed, your hands are in some specific position. If you get pulled out of a retreat center and says, okay, your practice now is to wash dishes and chop vegetables, you're like, what's wrong with me? Like, I don't get to meditate. You don't want to be driving yourself in some direction that's not wholesome for you just because it's the idea of what meditating is.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about your work with the mind-life and what you just presented to the Dalai Lama?
Mm-hmm. I've been with Mind and Life pretty much since the beginning, at least from the when they're trying to train the sort of new generation.
So this is someone who has an academic background in a particular science and who has a meditative practice.
That's right. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a scientist, so it could also be a scholar. So there's 2 meetings at Mind and Life. One are the dialogues with His Holiness, and then there's the Summer Institute, which is really about cultivating the next generation, to sort of present them to His Holiness, like, look what we've created, our little products, and to have us present our research to him in person. So we all presented on different things, and I presented on this most recent research on, meditation-related difficulties and adverse effects, difficult stages. He had a very interesting response, which was basically that problems will arise when people don't have enough theoretical preparation. And he told a story where he had been invited to give a blessing to a new monastery in South India. They were very excited to have him come, and it was a huge ceremony and a tour, and they were showing him around, and there's this beautiful Zendo meditation hall, and he's looking around, and he's like, "Where's your library?" And they're like, "Oh, no, like, we don't have a library, like, this is our beautiful meditation hall." And he's like, not blessing it. We've taken these practices and in some ways just decided what we were going to do them for. Like, what's the intention? Whatever you want.
Right.
And in some ways that's very freeing, and there's probably a lot of new possibilities within that, but also there's obviously, now we're learning, maybe
the possibilities are that it's made meditation practice available to anyone and everyone.
Right.
And His Holiness the Dalai Lama is saying, well, actually, you need to be grounding that in a much wider and deeper theoretical base.
That's right.
In other words, you just can't take mindfulness out of Buddhism so fast. Or,
right.
Mindfulness out of the teachings that it comes from so quickly.